There's plenty of people around you that want to help, that are able to help, that if at worst case scenario, they can deliver 70% of what you would be able to do, your enthusiasm or direction. That's good. That's scalable.
Yeah.
But you have to structure for that, plan for that, and then delegate with a very clear written process. Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroad Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business while working through adversity and pouring back into our community that keeps our doors open every single day. We're your hosts, Shelby, Matt, and Taylor, and we'll be bringing you real, relevant local business advice, maybe some automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business or buying a car, and maybe even throw in a plug for you to do business with us here locally.
Crossroads Conversation. Welcome to episode 41.
Let's
Kicking
go.
it off, keeping it rolling. Hey, fun one diving in today. Steering ahead and the power of managing proactive versus reactive. The different styles you have and how you really can manage the whole situation and then compound to absolutely shoot it forward and doing it in the right way. But before we dive into that, Matt, last week.
Hey, last week we had a special guest in the studio,
Oh, yeah.
Joe Rollins.
Yep.
And it was fun because we went down memory lane from what we'd grown up doing. It was going to the rodeo of the Ozarks.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe talked to us about all things rodeo, which is coming up here. You know, it's a great family time to
Yep.
take everybody out, you know, whether it's from the mutton busting to getting your new hat
Yeah.
to checking out, you know, the bull riding and the saddle broncs. But a great tradition right there in the heart of Springdale. And we've been connected with that organization, supporting them, just like we do with a lot of organizations here in Northwest Arkansas, because it's what we like to do.
Yeah.
You know, we like people to do business locally so we can give back locally. And Joe gave us an insight on a great way that we get to do that year in and year out. And make sure to check us out at lewissuperstore.com, where you can always find our specials and everything we've got going on.
Absolutely. And hey, what did we drive today? This is an automotive podcast talking about automotive business, and no better way than talking about what we do each day
You
is
bet.
drive cars. So today my feature is the Ford Maverick. Now we've talked about this before, but sometimes I don't overlove talking about something that we don't have a whole lot of.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So we finally got our stockpile back up of the Ford
Yep.
Maverick. One thing that they changed this year in the Maverick, which I love, is that they offer now the hybrid,
Okay.
2.5 liter hybrid, 40 miles a gallon in all-wheel drive.
Oh, that's
You know, they initially thought, hey, we got to be front-wheel drive.
Okay.
It's got to be so fuel efficient. They thought, no, it's okay to give up a couple miles per gallon, but also to get all-wheel drive, what truck stuff generally is.
Yeah, to
right?
get them to the places.
So you're getting up to 4,000 pounds towing capability. It's a 4-door, 5-passenger, got a bed in it that you can do your hobby farm or whatever you want to do, load it up. And we've got over 25 Mavericks on the ground. Starting price of a low $21,000 and goes all the way up to the trimmer package that goes off-road and it's got the big beefy tires and upgraded wheels and some upgraded options there. But love the Maverick. It's just a good driver if you're a commuter, but you need some mulch on Saturday.
Yep.
Or just whatever. And the Maverick is generally a transition from someone who's never been in the truck to get over and be a part of Ford, you know, number one selling vehicle for a long time. Or somebody who's been in a big truck doing truck stuff for a long time and says, hey, it's kind of tricky to park at Walmart or Sam's Club.
Yep.
Let's truck down a little bit, but still have your man card per se of a truck. So the Maverick is always a fan favorite, and we've got them on the ground.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That is
Got them on the ground. And are they part of employee pricing?
They are 100% part of employee pricing.
So you get to pay what the employee at the manufacturers. If you worked on Ford and you built the Maverick, you get to pay what they pay, and they continued that on from May into June, employee pricing. So the Maverick gets to take part in that. So I love the Maverick. Wanted to bring that up today of a vehicle that we love to drive.
You bet.
All right, so transition into today's what we're talking about is steering ahead. Are we talking reactive or are we talking proactive? Are you planning for something or are you reacting to a situation?
Yeah.
And yes is the answer. Yes is the answer before I fully let you guys unpack that. But it takes both, right? So you have to plan for the future ahead. but you also have to be able to make that adjustment, that fourth quarter, fourth down. Whoops, we called 24 sweep, but they're stacked way too deep in the middle.
Yep.
Or, hey, we thought that this was going to be super busy and this was going to work like this. And wait, hold on, guys. And I want to start with story time, and I'll pitch this. And Matt, you can tell this story, but tell the stories of lemons to lemonade, of long ago when we were kids, of how you really planned something, put a lot of effort into it, and at the last minute something changes.
Man, I can tell you, and hopefully this is a story you're thinking of. I can tell you growing up when we had the boat store.
Yep.
Okay. We had the boat store, and I'm just barely old enough to have my hardship. Okay.
Yeah.
So 14, 15 years old. And we had recently bought a store over in Harrison. And over in Harrison, there was a mall that we rented out to have a big boat sale, like an indoor sale. Now, in order to do that, we had to take hundreds of boats, not 2, 3, 4, 5, but hundreds of boats from Springdale all the way over to Harrison.
So a truck with a driver attached to boat,
Yes.
times hundreds.
That was including me with my hardship driving to Harrison, pulling all the boats. We worked all week long with drivers, taking all the boats over there, getting them set up, so on and so forth. And it comes to be on Friday when we get ready to launch this sale. Radio stations are there, boats are set up. Marketing. I mean, to the point where, you take one of the tires and wheels off so you can slant the boat. You can see in it, the
Put
TVs.
the platforms to the back so
The
you can walk in.
platforms, all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. Okay, we're ready to go. And I can remember my grandfather and my dad, we were all over there ready to go. And then we get shut down. We get shut down because of some type of licensing or this or that. It was above my pay grade at that point
The
in time.
vehicle commissioner says, hey, you don't have your license to sell in this, which we did in Harrison.
We did.
But there was something of an off-site sale. They said, you cannot sell a boat here.
That there was something that just didn't work. So here we go, all invested in. We'd moved all of our inventory from Springdale to Harrison to do that. And I could just remember like deflated because I had just worked ding to dong, getting it all
I've been
ready.
Proactive, setting up for this thing.
Setting up for it. And it's like, let's move all the boats back. And so we move them back. And I can remember a Saturday morning meeting. My grandfather, we're on the showroom floor in Lakeland Marine. And he passes out all these. He's got this, like from the farmer's market, this brown bag of lemons, and we passed them all out. And I'm 14 years old. It's like, okay, what do we got to do? Well, whatever my grandfather says is what we're going to do. Smile on her face. I had no clue where this was going. And then he passed out the other way all these sugar cubes. He said, everybody get a couple of pieces of sugar cubes. And so we get them all together, and I'm still not relating, like, what are we doing? And he goes into this whole story about what had happened. And he said, when life gives you lemons, you got to figure out a way to turn that into lemonade. And that's what he said. He said, hey, we were already amped up. We got the manufacturer's backing. We pivoted, we adjusted, brought all the inventory back, moved the remotes to now be a sale in Springdale, add the sugar to the lemons, and make lemonade. Yeah. So that was a way to be reactive
instead of, hey, everybody go home, we'll try again next week. All the boats are in Harrison, but we can only sell in Springdale.
That's right.
So that's a great, I remember that in life lessons. I don't remember like, oh, hey, he's, they're in the hole for spending all the money.
Sure.
He's trying to sell something, right? So that is a total reactive. And as leaders, your employees will look to you, right? They'll say, what do we do in this situation? Hailstorm comes along, destroys a bunch of cars. They'll look at you. Do we throw a fit? Do we, pout about it? Or, so that's the reactive. So then proactive of steering ahead and how to be a growing company. What are things that we do?
I'm going to first, and we'll go into that, but I'm going to set the stage just so everybody listening out there, hopefully this will resonate. Naturally, everybody is not proactive.
Oh, no.
Naturally, because the part of our brain that takes over, we're reactive people. And I have not been the best in this space throughout my career. But I've developed the ability through learning and listening to others about the value and the importance about being proactive.
So that might be like, hey, what does your day look like? And it'll be like, I don't know, we'll see what comes about and we'll handle it, right? Versus, hey, let me plan the day, and then if we need to be reactive in between the plans.
And that comes with identifying by having, we've talked in other episodes, that small group of people. So you're vulnerable enough as a leader, even though you're saying, hey, I'm in charge, to throw it out there to some team members to say, please poke holes in this.
Yeah.
I want your honest feedback. So the right people have to be in the room. But by doing that, just like you're talking about, Shelby, you're able to be proactive because you're like, hey, give me your opinion instead of keeping it in this box and not asking other people for the input.
Yep.
You're saying, hey, what could go wrong here? If something does go wrong, how do we pivot? What are some alternatives? And you get everybody's buy-in to that, so then you can be proactive.
Yeah, and those are separate rooms and separate conversations. Sometimes those people will share roles when you are reactive of like, hey, here's our game plan. Am I missing anything? Let's go. But then the proactive is a complete different thing. So two, kind of what comes from proactive versus reactive is the comfort zone or the growth zone, right? Taylor, can you speak on that, of what your thoughts are, what you see in the daily of a comfort zone versus a growth zone and how that kind of attributes?
More times than not, you have so many people that come in and their comfort side will say, hey, I'm going to put my guard, I'm going to put my shield up because I know backed into my corner where I'm comfortable, I can handle anything that's thrown at me.
Yeah.
Where honestly, if they would really step out and be able to move forward with being proactive, step out of your comfort zone a little bit, go back to what we've talked to. If it's a list, if it's a chart, anything you need to follow. And I found myself in this a lot, that the more and more structured I come during the day, because I've been very growing in this career of, hey, I can handle a lot, throw it on me. And I get to the end of the day and I'm absolutely spent. And then I go back and, okay, well, they haven't really grown how they need to grow because I took on everything, the problems, the process, but I've really found myself to where, hey, I'm going to start teaching these people so that I can help manage that. But then this is part of my process. If you don't learn to put that process in, it's never going to help you grow like we've talked about before. But more people than not stay in that whole structure of, I'm going to sit here and defend everything off instead of being proactive. Because a lot of times I think we're really shielded in our profession that we're in, because a lot of people come to us no matter what happens and say, oh, what are you going to do with this? What are you going to do with that? Are we going to shut down? Are we going to do that? And we say, no, we're not going to. We're going to move forward and we're going to keep working. We don't let things derail us very fast. But that's been really that I've seen helping grow. Matt's really helped push down from top of, hey, we've got to have rules, procedures, and be structured. So we've really seen some growth in that.
So go from the comfort zone to the growth zone.
Yes.
Definitely a big thing there.
Absolutely.
Hey, let me jump on that because, guys, we got to be honest for a second. We're all men in here. And naturally, we love taking on a load on saying, hey, put it on my back. I got it. We get instant gratification and fulfillment of going, hey, yeah, you got it. I can handle it. Come on, give me more. Give me more. I got this. Put it on my back and y'all follow my lead. So naturally, I think especially as men, you're like, I'm a leader. I can show strength. I can handle more. And we get this natural of success and fulfillment of taking more on. Like at the end of the day, even if you're exhausted, you're like, yeah, they can depend upon me. I can carry the load. I got it. And it's not till a little bit later in your career where that sense of accomplishment turns into frustration.
Yeah, and to go further into that, you have to learn to quantify fulfillment via a non-action of doing something, right? Because generally sometimes, and I've said this before, I'm going to go move the cars on the lot.
Yeah.
Because I just need some actual tangible that I can see at the end of the day, dang, these look good, right? Or let me go work in the loop bay and help them be more efficient, right? I can help that. But then the flip switch is that's a reactive, and we can be really good reactive people. We've just grown up putting out fires and saying, I was like, hey, how was your day? It was busy. And like you couldn't quantify. And sometimes you had some numbers to help quantify that. but it made you feel good and actually like I accomplished this. And so then as we go from working in the business to working on the business, you have to figure out how to quantify. Did you help them with a process or procedure, help solve an issue before it became an issue based on something in the past? That's tough to do of men and tangible people that we're not natural bookworms and we're not natural sit behind the desk and come up with process and procedures. Some of you are, right? And that's like a really good thing.
Oh, yeah.
You might not have as much of the hands-on thing, like how'd you figure out how to do that? Because that's what we've always done. And so now we're figuring out the other side of getting fulfillment and like, hey, I was able to help structure and I was able to help teach instead of just doing. I said, and that's tough. Like sometimes they're like, hey, Shelby, can you help me with this? I'm like, yeah, you're going to need to figure that one out.
Yep.
And they're like, whoa, what do you mean? You always help me. It's like, no, like it's classic. Hey, I can give you water. You know, I can fill you up, or I can show you how to go find the water. And then you'll have water for life, right? You know, so that is not natural and something we've had to work on constantly.
I think I just want to get through to everybody that they know that the amount of time, and we're still not perfect at it, the amount of time that it is taking us and the years of, honestly, the frustration part finally gets through your thick skull of like, I've got to do something different. And Taylor, you and I have talked about that a bunch. And it's so hard when naturally you're like, just get in there and get it done. And we work hard, we hammer it out. But then all of a sudden the frustration comes from, I'm not scaling my business.
It's not scalable.
The frustration comes from, you try to go on vacation with your family and you come back and everybody gives you a garbage dump about what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was meeting with my managers the other day after I'd come back from, we went on a family vacation, and I didn't want a download of everything that had happened. What I wanted is, was there anything you couldn't handle that we need to discuss?
Right. That's it. And really not necessarily of that situation.
Yep.
But where did we miss, right? Where did we not have a process or procedure?
Yep.
Because, and I've in a book that I'm reading, they talk about that. Like if you cannot be gone for a week or a month, then you haven't done a good job scaling that. I was talking to one of our employees and was like, hey, did you have fun? It's like, yeah. It's like, hey, did you get bugged with phone calls? Like, no, that's a rule of mine that I did long ago, and it's hard to do.
Sure.
That I'm on airplane mode, right? I use my phone because I have the photos of it, but if I can disconnect, I can have better time with my family, and I can relieve the work stress. I said, if the building's on fire, call 911. I can't help you with that.
Yep.
Right? Short of everything else, I should have set up systems, or we should have built a team that can handle it. If you're relying on me for everything, I've done a bad job.
And that's what I told them, exactly what you said once I got done with, like, is there anything else you need help with? I didn't say, how did last week go?
Nope.
I didn't say, hey, tell me the stuff. And I told them at the end, I said, hey, I appreciate you not dumping all the garbage on me. I want to help you if there was areas that were above that you needed to bounce off me, make sure you're making the right decision. But I said, can I be honest with you? I hired you and I paid you to be able to run the department you're over. I don't need to know about the rest of that. That's what I pay you for. And if you can't do that, we got to figure something else out.
Yeah, the reports and the numbers will tell you how last week went.
It really will.
And you just, you should know that the rest of it show. So that's a pretty good, if you don't go in airplane mode, or when you come off of airplane mode, if you have 100 text and emails from internal people, you need to look at your delegation chart of you're not giving enough of that responsibility out. And depends your role and where you're at and what you're doing. But that's a telltale sign.
So I think all of that kind of comes into place, and I'm gonna go into a filter here before we move on that I've had to put in place and I've taught managers about is figuring out on the proactive versus reactive, because both of those come together because you're training people. In order to get to your brain where you can start thinking about proactive versus reactive, when something comes at you, no matter what it is, unless the building's on fire, you got to pull somebody out of a burning car. You know what I mean? Somebody has pulled something dangerous in your dealership, and you got to protect people. Besides those are not emergencies, but your brain will trick you thinking that, like, hey, you got to take action now. If you will just pause, no different than we talked about with everything else, and allow your emotions to come down, you can think logically and you can run it through a filter of, is this a 911?
Yeah.
Is this a 911? I had a customer call. I'm going to tell the story real quick. I had a customer blowing everybody up, and we've all been there. We've all been there. Absolutely, including my sister and her coworkers and everybody. And I had already walked this car completely through service. Customer didn't buy from us. I'd been to 8 different dealerships. Okay, but we're still here to help.
Sure. Yeah. But it's an emergency in our lab.
But it's an emergency. I find out after I'm texting the service manager. I give them a heads up before I go see them. I go see them, and they're like, Matt, what's going on? They picked up their vehicle on Thursday. Friday, we followed up with them. Everything was good. So I call this person back, and I'm not going to say their name, and I simply ask them, because no joke, my sister was texting me, her coworker was, customer was trying to get me. I said, is everything okay? Are you safe?
Yeah.
Are you on the side of the road where I need to send an emergency vehicle and a tow truck? And this person's like, no. And I'm like, well, I have everybody call me like the building's on fire.
Yeah.
Are you safe?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I just had a question. I just needed to know if you could get the manufacturer to reimburse me for some stuff. I was like, huh. So what I'm telling you is you just
people are sensitive.
is you have to allow yourself to go through the situation calmly so you can become more proactive.
You'll never have time to be proactive if you're constantly reactive. And that takes planning. And sometimes it'll get me, if you're not in the line of fire and you need to work proactively on forecasting or adjustments or hire or fire or train or what's next. If you're a natural reactive person, you'll say, hey, this doesn't need attention right now, and you'll put it back burner. And you'll put it back burner. So then when it is time, you're reactive and you don't have a new plan.
That's right.
You go back to the same old, and that gets you back into the comfort zone, which keeps you in the same circle. So it's tough if you're not naturally proactive. Some people are major planners. Kudos to you.
Kudos to you.
If you're not, I'm not. Then if it's not, I'm like, does it need my attention right now? And so reprogram my brain to say, yes, it does. So it's proactive instead of reactive. You can vet a couple ideas, bounce it off a couple people, and until it's like, hey, man, it's a grand opening. What color do you want to paint the wall? Like, hey, where should we put the front door? Right? And construction has definitely helped with that. They're like, hey, what do you think about this? You're like, for collision? Yeah, no. That's 6 buildings deep. That's 6. We'll handle that when we get there. And like I was telling Matt the other day, I was like, hey, on this building, can we please plan for this so it doesn't come down to the last minute?
That's true.
And it's like, yeah, we probably can. We blame it on the city, and the city, has their process, right? Sure. It's long and it's drawn out, and it's very T's and I's. But I was like, hey, so if you can learn, which is not natural to any of us, to handle this before it's really a situation, because then we'll be like, hey, you dude, how quick can you get it done? They're like, it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. Like, it ain't going to cut it. It's like, well, you burn 4 to 6 weeks putting it on the back burner, right? We know that.
Yeah.
But then you're like, no. Saturday, I need everything done. They're like, you need curbing, asphalt, landscape, irrigation, lines painted. The side's gotta be Saturday.
Yep, gotta be done.
We could have helped. So we've learned from lack of proactive to being reactive to let's become more proactive.
Hey, let's give them another example of, and this one's really simple, so it'll be easy to relate to, because we have it coming up too. The car show's coming up.
Yeah.
And it's wildly successful.
Yeah.
It's 200 to 300 cars on display, hundreds and hundreds of people that come. And in the past, we've just been in the middle of it being reactive.
It's like, we need audio. Like, yeah, go get the speakers.
Got audio. Oh, you need to move the sports cars over here,
Yeah,
modern
we got
muscle here. And we kept moving it around. But what it did, the 3 of us, now we got it done. And behind the scenes,
hustlers.
Nobody could ever tell that it didn't go smooth. But what it kept us from doing is being able to interact with all of our customers, employees, tell the people how great a job they've done restoring or polishing their car to make them feel welcome. And that's our value as business owners there.
So you didn't ever get to be...
We didn't get to do that.
You were... Somehow we didn't delegate anything. And so we were parking the cars I remember the first one, you're like, we still can do our sales meeting. It's like, no, you can't, you jackwagon. And so the sales meeting's happening. We're on Facebook Live. And then we said the car show starts at 9. Car show people start about 6:30 at the donut shop.
Oh, yeah.
Just coffee.
Oh, that was
And
a mess.
then here they come at 7:15, and Matt's mad at these people for being early. He's like, what the heck? We said 9 a.m. I'm like, Matt, like, shut the sales meeting down. And
I'm like, we're live here on Facebook.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us, car over
he's
there.
hollering at the salespeople like, get involved. And I'm like, you get involved. What are you doing? I was like, shut it down. And so we're in charge of the meeting. We're in charge of parking the cars. We're in charge of organizing the cars. No, you've got a big one. It goes over here. And we're in charge of the food truck. And then the audio, I'm like, we need another XLR cable. This one's bad. He's like, I got it. There's one up in the attic. So then he's going to do that. It's like, hey, Matt, everyone's standing in front of the tent. I couldn't figure out why. They're waiting on us for us to announce the winners of this thing.
Oh, there's a live remote.
And there's a live remote. Can you cut that real quick?
Cut it real quick.
And Matt's like, well, who's winning? And I was like, well, we're the judges. We haven't. I looked at. It's like, real quick, go look at the cars. There's Uncle Tommy. Get him or don't. Right? You know, like you gotta explain it all. Then it's like, hey, they want to know what. Oh, and they want to know, can they Venmo you the money to donate? It's like, oh crap, I got a Venmo here. Send it to me. He's like, so that was all, and it was amazing.
It was amazing.
People didn't know that your hair got even grayer, and
It was great.
you know, just the stress level was so high because we're really good at being reactive.
Oh, we are.
So then we've had now multiple different meetings to say, delegate, because there's plenty of people around you. Here's the takeaway.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people around you that want to help, that are able to help, that if at worst case scenario, they can deliver 70% of what you would be able to do, your enthusiasm or direction. That's good. That's scalable.
Yeah.
But you have to structure for that, plan for that, and then delegate with a very clear written process.
That's so good. And that rolls straight into, I was sitting here thinking about, laughing, listening about anybody that's listening to this talking about, I can't just give them over the keys and walk over. It doesn't start with a big thing. It starts with a small thing. I think about several episodes ago whenever I talked about how I was aggravated every night when I was the last one to leave. And I was there and I was like, I think they checked the doors. I'm going to walk through the doors. And every single time the key closet would be unlocked. And I was so mad that I finally said no. I was like, Taylor, you hadn't told anybody to lock the key closet. So of going through there, and it starts with something so small like that of checking people in or greeting people at the front door, locking the doors or whatever it would be, that you have to delegate it, clear expectations, and then the ball starts to click with, okay, a little bit more time back. I'll move over to that. Then you'll move to the next thing. So it's baby steps of being able to go where Matt's at now with all of his micro meetings. He definitely didn't flip a switch from running the whole sales meeting, car show, everything else with 47 hats on and say, nope, I can't do it. It was one step at a time, moving forward, helping delegate, being proactive in the whole situation. So,
You know, I think one thing as we're sitting here talking, this has kind of resonated with me because I'm like sitting here thinking in my mind, like, where did that come from? I mean, we're blessed with being able to that skill set of figuring things out, but like, where did that come from? And when you think about, you know, how we grew up, we were taught growing up of like, you see something that needs to be done, you do it. You know, and it's something as simple as like when you're sitting down for a family dinner and then you see that the dishes need to be done. I'm popping up and I'm doing the dishes.
Yeah.
You know, like nobody has to say anything. Well, the three of us grew up together that way. So then it almost got to this like Jedi mind thing where you can read in each other like what needs to be done. You don't have to communicate it,
no.
because that was the culture we're in. So then we take that culture that we know and then we can play off each other and go, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. And then we think all of a sudden
like
that our business and our employees need to be that way.
Like that the employees
Like that
understand
they
your
could read.
Jedi mind tricks.
They
But
already
it's what
think-
was ingrained into us. You know what I mean?
That makes complete sense, but it's so funny. It's like, why aren't they locking the door? Why does no one else want to refill the fridge full of waters? Like, why does no one else want to check the coffee maker? Like, why should we have to do all this? It's like, newsflash, you fool.
Yep.
You've never told them.
Yeah.
But they should just get it.
And you're like, well, I just see them and they're doing nothing. I have to point this out, and then we'll go to the next process. So it's summertime. Our kids are out of school. And my wife calls me or texts me the other day and is like, hey, I got to run into work. I have a couple clients. I was like, oh, congratulations. I'm proud of you. She's like, well, 2 of the boys are okay going with me. Oliver wants to come hang out with you. I was like, okay, well, I'm working. We're not going to go just frolic around, go find a pond to fish. She's like, I know that. I was like, yeah, sure, drop him off. She said, where are you going to be? I said, I have no clue. He'll find me.
Yeah.
So she brings him up with a scooter, and he's just scootering around. Just whatever. He'll find one of the 3 of us. And so I said, okay, let's go do this, this, and this. So I didn't explain everything we were doing, but I just did what I do on the daily. And so we looped around a couple times. He's like, Dad, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean, what am I doing? I said, I'm working. He said, we've gone in the same circle 3 times. I said, does it look like I'm lost? He said, no, and he's very blunt. Yeah. Like, he's going to say it like it is. And he's like, we've gone in the same circle 3 times. I said, that's a big part of my job, son, is I'm not so much a doer anymore, I said, did you see in service when we just went through there and they were hanging out on their phones and we were checking on, hey, how are we coming on checking in today? And how's the car wash? And what's our oil change, key to key time? And he's like, yeah. I was like, that's part of our job. I said, our visibility of being among the people, show the customers, show the workers that we are inspecting what we expect. Mm-hmm. I said, and did you see Larry over here? He was just sitting back eating the popcorn instead of popping the popcorn. And by us being around and checking on him, saying, hey, how's it going? Mm-hmm. Hey, how many bags have we gone through? Oh, and then we were at the parts department. We were checking on this and this. He's not overly like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes great sense. He's still like, so why'd we go in the circle 3 times? But then I was explaining to the team, I was like, hey, my 11-year-old son pointed this out. I said, that's what we get to do as managers. Now, everyone's a different level. You need to be overseeing and doing. Yep. And some people are just doing, and some people are just overseeing. But it was funny from the eyes of an 11-year-old. It's like, we're going in the same circle 3 times. Like, no, that's what we get to do, to make sure that the systems are working, the machines are turned on, the people are in the right place, and in a good state of mind. So that's a little bit of the reactiveness that is necessary.
Well, you were managing the systems and the expectations instead of the actual action.
Yes. Yep. No doubt.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, we absolutely dove in and killed being in the middle of firefighting the foresight of looking into it. But hey, time for a little bit of automotive history today. Okay. No quizzes. I'm going straight into history. What happened in the month of June in history of automotive? Henry Ford tested the first quadricycle.
Quadricycle.
I like that.
Uh-huh.
First drive-in movie theater opens. That's a big deal. Man, I mean, that's a long time. I know. First Chevy Corvette drive-off assembly line in the month of June.
Okay.
Had to have been in the 50s, probably. 50s, yeah.
Early 60s.
And then Senate passes landmark auto safety bill. Had to do something with...
We're talking seatbelts.
Yeah, had to have been seatbelts. So went back through that. World's first automobile race.
I wonder what that was.
They weren't just going down the interstate.
I can tell you, I don't have a clue. But I'll guess something. Yes. I mean, usually I got a pretty good insight. But, you know, that's a lot. If it is all of the above, that's a lot going in the month of June.
That is.
You know, but that's exciting.
That is a whole lot going. Hey, diving straight back into the next of building proactive systems, your business, early warning signals, and roadmaps. So we kind of really went over the whole process there, but how can you, whenever you're gauging day-to-day business and you're going through, what's an early warning sign whenever you're seeing any of departments of a broken process or a lack of thereof process? What's a sign of that?
I'll dive into that because you and I have had that conversation because I've gone through it too.
Yep.
And your goal should always be to pass everything down that you know, so then whoever you're passing it down to can start at that level and then move on.
Yep.
The easiest warning signs for us, I don't know if it's early, but warning signs for us is frustration.
Oh, yeah.
To me, when you find yourself frustrated about something not getting done, that is a direct correlation on that you're more reactive versus proactive, and you need to step back and look at how your communication and how you're setting clear expectations.
So
definitely, and that's so good. But then understanding that it can't just be one and done. If like, okay, I'm not going to be reactive. I get it. I could go park those cars, or I could go help change the oil, like, and then you're like, okay, let's create a system. It still takes the management of the system, and the follow-up of the system and the metrics to see that you're watching the system, and then all overlaps, so then you're walking through, because the reactiveness gets you. And so then you're like, oh, let's be proactive, create a system. It still won't solve it. Like, we laugh in our sales meeting going over okay, today here's what we're going to go over and here's what we'll cover. And we're like, okay, we'll build on the foundation, and then we'll get really deep, and let's go advance justification and these and these and these. And then it's like, let's just get back to the basics. Right? And because people are generally just simple and easy path of least resistance.
So I think what you have to be careful of here, and we do a good job of this naturally, but I want to share this with everybody, is we've talked about how much we've tried to become more proactive. We've empowered others, identified issues. But what we have not done is taken out the lead by example. Mm-hmm. So what you're talking about, it's not a set and forget it. You come out with a new process, you email, and you have a powwow. They still have to see, your employees have to see that it is important.
Yeah.
So we're still, especially in the early stages, when we come out with a new process to empower them, we're still involved. We're still help coordinating the cars where they go. Now, that's not a end-all be-all that we keep doing, but we're still leading by example, because that's how you get buy-in from your team. They're like, well, it must be important because the guy in charge is out here doing it with us.
That's so important. I saw that the other day that said, why in the automotive business, and I don't think it's just the automotive, he was just talking about that, but he said, why in the automotive business do we find something that works, something that people enjoy, that's an efficient process and is profitable, and then 3 months later, do we throw it out? Yeah. Do we stop doing it, right? And I think the biggest thing is just not properly managing that, because in our industry and amongst any other industries, there's always, next week, there's a newer software.
Yeah.
There's a better program. There's a better rep. There's a lower rate. All these things, somebody's trying to sell you something, and then you forget your basics and your metrics. And so your whole employment office is used to something new, and we do a pretty good job of not just introducing new something, because then the boy that cried wolf, they're like, yeah, just give it a week, it'll be gone. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to decrease the bottom line because they're going to keep paying for it, but it doesn't affect my pay, so just give it a week and they'll stop paying attention. So we try to buck the trend there. To say, we're riding this mule all the way through the Grand Canyon to make sure that you signed up for the Grand Canyon tour, and you're going to get the whole tour.
That brings up a stage 2 here, and it's just a great segue. So the first part, we spent time going over just being reactive, which really was a clear indication that we didn't have a process, we weren't empowering others. This comes to a new one. It's such a great point, Shelby, is that if you already have something in place, a process of empowering or to be more proactive, and then all of a sudden it looks like it's not working, before you just buy the new shiny thing or the new software, go back and look at and inspect, are they actually doing what you have in place? Yeah. So before you just recreate it and redo all the things, first go inspect, is it being done? Because it may not be broken, it may just be an accountability issue. Yep. That you need to reignite. We talk about that training all the time. We got to come all the way back to step 1. Even though we spent weeks on weeks and everybody repeated it, and they stood in front of the classroom, we got to come back and repolish it. But that's why the word manage is in manager, because you look at it and you're managing the processes of the people and the activities, and that's ongoing. If it wasn't, and we didn't need that, we wouldn't need managers, and we'd save a whole lot in payroll.
Yeah, and a real deal off that, Taylor was telling me about his management team the other day, and they had an employee that they felt wasn't fitting the culture, wasn't cutting the mustard, and they said, hey, we want to get rid of employee X. And the thing that we talk about, and hopefully majority of people should regurgitate, is time tools training. And so that was the thing that you told them, right?
Absolutely. Went into, because every situation's different. You can give somebody, hey, a pat on the back and move on, or other ones, it is intentional every single day. And I said, hey, this is what needs to happen. You need to sit down. And first step was They hired the person.
Is that right?
They hired the person.
That's 2 episodes back when we said empowering the employees to get buy-in. Mm-hmm. So in the hire, you said, hey, you go talk to this person and see if you like them. So then you use that.
Absolutely. I said, y'all hired. You made this decision. And so, no, you're not getting out of it. Mm-mm. But what I want you to do, and I broke this down and gave them more of a roadmap because I see they were done.
Correct.
They had nowhere else to go. And I said, 10 minutes a day, no longer than 10 minutes a day. And it can be twice a day. But you sit down and it's so surface level. It's, hey, this is a needs assessment. Hey, this is a credit app. You're walking through A, B, C, D, every single number, letter, exactly with her, of going through every, the test drive, everything else, and it's every single day. Yeah. And I said at the end of that 30 days, whenever you're with that employee, if we get to that and you bring back to me and say, okay, Taylor, this is where we're at, absolutely. You've given the time, you've given the tools, you've given the training, and we can move on, whether it's moving to a different department or it's parting ways. You've given them all the opportunity. But you currently, where you're at, you have not done that. So no, you may not.
That's so good because we speak of that maybe 3 to 7 times a week in our morning meeting with our managers, and then throughout managing the system. Have we given it time, tools, and training? The program, the new way that something goes, or most importantly, the employees. And so that was good that resonated on Taylor's level. It had not resonated, and they just wanted a replacement person, but they weren't fixing their way that they managed those people because it wasn't an easy plug and play, because we hired somebody who was not from the automotive industry, which we love, right? Because they don't have bad habits, or we used to do it like this, or what if I changed their income a little bit to get an approval? We didn't have any of those habits.
Nope.
But because they didn't have any bad habits, they didn't initially take off with their base level training and say, I can sell a couple cars. And so then they're like, hey, I like this person, I'll invest some time. Well, they hadn't it all, and they said, go get trained, go get certified. And they're like, okay, they're good to go get them.
Yep.
And then it was like, hang on, they're not, the harvest is not coming in. It's like, hang on. Have you put fresh soil on it? Have you watered it every day? Have you checked its root system? You know, is it around something else that maybe is taking away nutrients? Like, i.e. a bad employee that's saying, no, you're good. Meanwhile, they're just getting them fired. Right? So that.
And we've gone through that a lot here recently because we've obviously been in a growing stage, and we have found our managers that they said, no, you said I needed to grow. Yes, but grow in stages that is sustainable.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing is, I look up and they've done a half staff turnover. So say you have 12 salespeople and they bring 6 on. You can't actively train that many and be intentional with every single one of them. So it's been a huge learning curve for us to be able to go back and understand that you have to be scalable within reason and in stages, because you can't overly step forward or it's going to fail, and it'll be something that it's another process, procedure that, it wasn't a big deal, or it didn't make sense, anything else like that. So that's really taught us of moving forward in that process.
I think a key point here, and this is going to be difficult, I know it is for me, and I'm sure it probably will be for people listening too, if you really think about it, is as a leader, you're making a shift here. And naturally, where you were a doer, and let's just be honest, especially when you start off small, that got you to where you currently are. By diving in there and reacting to everything, that got you to the level you are. That hustle, getting in the middle of it, got you to be successful, but will not get you to where you need to go.
Yep.
So you have to retrain a little bit. And I'm just going to tell you a couple key things here. First off, you have to shift from actually doing the activity, reactive, to now you're managing the process.
So from a player,
yes,
I was a really good quarterback, I was a really good wide receiver, I was a really good linebacker, to now you're the coach that you have to teach, create, and make people do those plays.
Yes.
And so as a coach, you're just like, no, run through this hole, right?
And you know what's funny? If they didn't have the rules of you're only eligible for so many years, how many coaches do you think at halftime would put pads and a helmet on and try to be
Until they got hit, most of them.
Most of them,
But that's the same thing in business.
It's the exact same thing, but and you could just ride that pony. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Everyone has a different spot, and that's why we're all different. You might be best to just be the doer.
Yes.
Right? Or you might want more, have a better skill set of being the coach. Like I was not the fastest, I was not the best tackler, but I have an eye for seeing opportunity, or I have an eye for, hey, let's run this,
Yep.
And so then a person that grows from just the doer all the way to the person that creates the system is a rarity. But you have to see that.
You got to be able to shift there. And you're going to have, let me just tell you, you're like, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm tired of being frustrating. I'm going to put processes in. I'm going to empower others. We're going to be proactive. That's fine and dandy until something happens. And when something happens, instantly your mind's going to go back to, well, dang it, I knew it. If I wanted it done right, I should have done it myself. Pause for a second. I'm going to tell you something simple. And you guys can relate to this. If we leave our house and we head to work, we could go down I-49 to get here. We could go down Double Springs. We could go down Broyles. We could go down 4 or 5 other places.
Yep.
They all end up at the same place, don't they?
Yep.
They all end up at the same place. And we might have all different, we could get into a whole debate about why my way's better than your way. And within a couple minutes, we all arrived at the same place within the same time. Those people you empower are going to be the same way. They might not do it the identical way you did it, but if it fits within your ethics, your morals, the way you do business, and it was done in a timely manner, if it hits those, who cares?
No.
If you get hung up on do it my way, you're going to need to change that.
You can't scale.
Or you're going to have to go down one.
You can't scale. Yeah.
I
Sell your business.
No, right. Send us a message. We'll take a look at your business. I'm reading this book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And it is so good. This guy's aspiring to be not a chef level, but to run one of the top tier restaurants out there. And his dad came from the restaurant industry, so he gave him really good guidance. And there's a really cool thing in there that he talks about, because he goes to work for this type of company that is a hands-on, doer style, and there's really no rules, and the chef can pick from anything he wants for the menu, and maybe it's crab, or maybe it's what's that steak that you like, the Wagyu steak, and he has really no budget, no nothing, and the customers love it because it's always the latest and greatest. But then what do they do in this situation or this situation? Or what if lobster goes ridiculously high?
Sure.
So then he goes work for more of a corporate style. And he talks about working in a corporate style in a really high-end 4-star in New York City. And he's in this store, and he has to start back as a waiter that runs the food. And he's like, man, okay, I got to do my... And he sees as he grows into it, becomes a general manager of that, and he moves a vase from one side of the bar to the other side of the bar so the bartender could see all of his people at the bar and serve them at the highest level. Well, then he comes in the next day and the vase was moved back to the other side. It's like, what the heck? It's like corporate came and moved it. It's like corporate's interior designer said you can't move anything. And so there's corporate smart, and I forget his exact verbiage, but there was like, think of homegrown, hometown, local smart, right? And so then he's working on this perfect version of 2 of them. Of still having, that's why we're not corporate, right? We've got that. That's why we don't have 30 stores across the U.S. because we want to be fully involved. But now as we scale, we're starting to have to say policies and procedures with an asterisk.
Sure.
With an asterisk that says, in this situation, here's how we can help. So it's not like cut and dry, like Walmart says, this is how it is. Like Walmart, if a light goes out, you can't climb on the desk and take the light bulb out and replace it because they have to have all those.
Sure.
We're like somewhere in between there, figuring out like, okay, let me hold you up and put you in the ceiling to replace it or let me get the ladder for you.
Or it hits a level and your manager then comes in, and I have a couple way less than we used to, but hey, this doesn't fit within the guidelines. What do you want me to do with this? And it's a real quick decision because they bring you all the facts. And yep, let's go ahead and move forward with taking care of that. Or nope, let's stick with what you were doing.
So you've proactively created a situation or standing operating procedure, the KPIs to say, whoop, this is at around here, without having to live in every single decision. Because they're like, get out of my way. Did you hire me to do this or not? You're like, oh, I did. I'm not going to follow you to work every day to see how you get there.
Sure.
I'm going to let you get there. And if you show up on time and work hard, then you do what you want.
I hope everybody doesn't miss this section we paused on here, because I'm just telling you, some of you are going to be gung-ho, your hair's on fire, you're ready to make a difference, you're tired of being frustrated, and you're going to go in guns blazing, get your whole team together, and then you're going to hit, and there's going to be a stumbling block. It's life.
It's going to happen every
That happens. And you're going to instantly snap back, be highly frustrated, say those Lewis brothers lied to me, this isn't correct. No, that's just life. And you've got to learn how to deal with it, empower others, calm down, and don't jump back in the middle of it and give the process time. You're going to have to fire that old person you were to grow into the new person you need to be to take your business to where you want it to go.
Every time you get a bad Google review, a manufacturer survey, or get a call from a customer, I generally go back to that reactive, like, why aren't we doing that? It's so simple. But then you also have to give it some validity of like, hey,
sure.
And one thing he says in that book is assume the best out of everyone. And you go check with Matt, like, hey, Matt, I saw this review come across, or maybe even don't mention the review, like, hey, Mrs. Smith came in yesterday. Did everything go good? Was there any hiccups or anything I can help with, a system or process that I can help with? And then they would say, actually, there was an issue. Or they'll say, no, everything was good. Yeah. And so then I can unpack that and see, rather than before I've wanted it, especially when you get a couple in a row, 1 stars, and people are people, right? And people are getting vicious because they're keyboard warriors. But before you just go judo chop that person and say, what the heck, dude? That's 3 in a row that says you don't communicate. I'm just going to go check on them. Hey, are you doing all right? Hey, man, is family good? Hey, Mrs. Smith. And you might know those people's name, but you don't call it out. And was there any issues? Everything go good? And they're like, yeah, everything was good. And they're like, well, what about Tom? Like, how did that go? And it's like, oh, it went really good. And they're like, what are you asking? I was like, the reason I ask is, and then you show them is like, hey, did you communicate with them? I know these customers are basket cases sometimes. And they're like, well, yeah, here's Numa. You can see where I text them 14 times. Yeah. There was a case of that the other day, and they were like, worst dealership in the world, bait and switch. They totally said they were going to do this and didn't do that. And then they made me get on the red carpet and take my photo and hold the sign. And then I went online and I couldn't find it anywhere. Yeah. Well, come to find out, a lot of those things had happened, and we've done what we said we we're going to do, and we communicated, and they had actually canceled their appointment that we had scheduled for them. And then they had their phone off and we couldn't get a hold of them, but we had sent. So you have to be careful not to go attack that person. It needs to be addressed and see, is there an issue on our side, or is it just a basket case?
Sure.
Because naturally it just makes you want to reactively say, like, can anyone do anything right around here?
That's true. That's true. I mean, naturally the fight or flight part of the front of your brain instantly takes over. And until you have built yourself to be able to breathe, pause, and walk through it, you can't think logically. Yeah. Once you develop that skill set, you open up doors of scalability and success. But that takes work on yourself, starting with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big. Hey, diving back into all of our facts that happened during the month of June, did y'all think it was which one of those?
I mean, there was a lot of them, right?
Yeah, you got Henry Ford first test the quadricycle, first drive-in movie theater, first Chevy Corvette drive off the assembly line, Senate passes landmark auto safety bill, a.k.a. seatbelt, and world first automobile race. It's got to, it's all of it.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. All of them kind of make sense there.
They all happened in the month of June throughout probably over the last decade. But
okay, so as we continue to talk about this and we wrap it up, it's now, how do we land the plane of we know we need to be more proactive versus reactive. And there are times we have to be reactive, but they're very few and far between. So then being proactive with your teams, let's talk about delegating vision and not just the task. Because we've talked about in previous episodes, you got to get the vision. Everybody bought in on the vision, and then you put the task in place to carry out that vision.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about that and it comes up, you got your core group of people, your catalysts, your influencers within your business. It's not by job title. You've already identified them. You get them to buy in on the vision.
Yeah.
And then we start delegating the task. You know, so what are some examples, or how have you guys seen this take place? You know, we've got many examples over, especially the past couple of years.
When you delegate the task, you also have to give them the ability to solve problems,
Okay.
to handle things, right? That might be an allowance, you know, and as we have tried to be very conscious of cost of things, because that's what's, Taylor, that's what's got us here, right? As we flip the switch to go from, you know, hey, let's sustain, and then to growth mode, right? Two complete different things. And we've changed that, and that's kind of happened from generation to generation of us gain trust. Then we had to start doing that with our team. And we had to realize that we need to give them some type of, hey, you're in charge of all of this.
Yeah.
And you're in charge of all this. By that, I mean you have the ability to solve the issue, and here's what your allowance is to handle this. You can do all these things without having to ask for any permission, right? We had to do that in used repairs. To say, hey, and we had to do that with a shop. Instead of micromanaging every single used car that goes through the shop. Remember in March, it was like, what was it, like 385 cars or something, used cars? We said, why are we micromanaging to say, hey, give me a write-up like we were consumer? We are, but to say, don't we trust these people? They're unemployed to say, okay, you've got $1,000 to spend, and here is your KPI. If the tires measure less than 5/30 seconds, replace them. But we had to really have systems and say, replace them with this brand, or this brand. And you pick whatever you want. We couldn't just say, hey, you've got $1,000 to spend, right? Because that would just be willy-nilly, right? And so then we had to scale those things, but we had to empower people, and then we had to give them direction, and we had to give them the ability to spend to solve an issue with a customer, issue that's not an issue, but ability to create business.
You know, as you're going through that, the reason you can rattle that off is you've been through it. Okay? And let's unpack something real quick here. Is the used vehicle reconditioning is easy to talk about there. It's like you first get frustrated by it, and it's like, okay, let me just set them up an allowance. Okay, you can spend up to $1,000 on this vehicle in the shop without having to bring a major repair to me.
It didn't start in the depth.
You know, you set 1,000, and then all of a sudden you get out there, and every Focus has Michelin tires on it.
Yeah, and every car's got 1,000 spent on it.
And every car's got 1,000 spent on it. And you're like, dadgummit, you know? So then you're like, okay, after you get past your emotions and your frustration, I didn't go far enough in depth. So you have to, when you empower and you put that out there, you do have to set very clear boundaries.
And I'm so glad you point that out, because yes, I could rattle off our variances of what the battery needs to test and what the brakes need to be, and it's because I've had to create those by going back. You know, you might get to a meeting and you're like looking at this, and you're looking at your used vehicle reconditioning costs, and you're like, it's creeping up. And so I'm like, hey, pull me 15 of the most recent tickets. And I look at these, and I'm like, really putting a lot of ridge grapplers on stuff. Like, are people asking for these, or okay with Toyos? Or are they okay with Kelly Safaris that still have a 60,000 mile rating? And so then you cannot go back to reactive and judo chop and say, look, why are you putting Michelin on everything? Because you didn't give them the guidelines. So you won't get it right the first, second, or third time. But as long as you're proactively trying and give them the ability to, because if you give them the responsibility without giving them the ability to handle that, you have not relieved yourself of the responsibility. It will still be in your lap. Hey, Taylor, I talked to this guy. I've been on the phone. He's upset. I think I got it handled, but here's what we need to spend and do. Like, no, you still had to deal with it.
Yes.
It still took up your time.
It did. I mean, that we have in so many circumstances of growing and putting anybody into empowerment of being able to do what you're putting them. It has to be, you go back, circle check, and then we pull some back because we figure out that we've had managers that way overspend of different things. We're like, okay, not completely take it away. Like, go to your room. You're in timeout.
Yeah.
No, hey, we're going to dial it back down. We're going to structure just on this amount. Give them a vision of what you need them to move forward with if you want them to continue to grow.
Yeah.
If not, throw them in the closet and they're going to continue to be the problem that they're always been.
On the flip side of that, within managing that, you'll see your next level doers.
Yeah.
You'll see your next level teachers that say, you know, you'd be like, hey, has there been any issue with reconditioning? Has there been any issue of anything throughout the store? And they'd be like, no. It's like, okay, is there any hiccups? It was like, well, there was this and this, but I handled it. It was like, you need to not miss that opportunity. That's a person that can help you grow, right? To say, hey, would you mind looking at this part? Like, what if you looked at this part of the service department? Do you see an area? And they're like, oh, yeah. Like, is that okay if I do that? I was like, no, that would be great help to me.
Yep.
And then so you see that person, you reward them by thank yous, you reward them by recognition, you know, whether it's just directly to them or within the department, and then you reward them with more responsibility.
I think the important part here as you're making the transition, the adjustment as a leader to being proactive, getting your team bought in on the vision, delegating the task. Let me give you another pro tip here. There is no way that you'll create the perfect process that doesn't need any adjustments right out of the gate. So your role has now changed from being the reactive firefighter to being the one that manages the process. And your ear's close enough to it. You can't just go play golf. You know what I mean? You're still in the business. You're still working on it. You're just working on it at a higher level where you get the multiplication factor. That's the only difference.
Yep.
So now you're listening going, I put this in place, sounded great. The focus group said that this would work, but we missed this piece. We noticed that they're still putting the highest dollar tires on every vehicle. We still notice they're doing this. All right, let's adjust that.
Yeah.
So you're constantly doing that. You're either adjusting
Yep.
or you're going behind and you're checking how often are they training and implementing that? Do we need to relaunch and come back?
Yep.
Too many people, and we talked about this earlier, but I got to come back to it. Too many people put a system or software in place, and then they look up 12, 18 months later, and it's gone back downhill, revenue, sales, profit, whatever it may be, and they're like, what do you think? And everybody's like, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Well, it did work. You had growth for 12 months, and they're like, let's buy a new system,
Yep.
and then they buy the next new shiny thing. And it's like, before you do that, go inspect, go talk to some of the people and ask them, can you do the meet and greet? What's the proper ordering process for, a back order part? What's the process for writing somebody up in service? And you inspect those processes to give feedback to your team.
Yeah, I loved in the sales meeting yesterday. So I had a new guy that was asking, and you required this whenever we first came out with this, and this was really big. And some managers went down and tried to hide. But a new guy was like, I was getting ready to ask, whenever we start our sales meetings on Monday, it's always started with, hey, how are you? Kind of pulling them out of the ditch a little bit. And let's do the meet and greet. And people are hiding like this behind them. Like, anybody new that feels like they're brave enough, they're going. One new guy said, hey, is there a way of how I can train and how I can learn this? And I wanted to get irritated, like, yes, there's a way. We go over this every week. I said, yes. So do you have your owner's manual? And he's like, your employee training manual? And he said, yes. I said, let me tell you a quick story, everybody. Whenever we had first been in this training, Matt was in there. He required everyone, and I mean everyone, even every manager. And you're on a list, and you got checked off, and it was roulette. Yeah. You didn't know when so it may be 30 weeks down the road, because we'd do a couple each week, but he would pull them out, just sock out of the hat whenever you were pulling anything else. So it was crazy of going into their level of expectation of training whenever you're going into and letting your team know. And then they're like, oh, okay, so we really need to get this figured out. Well, yes, we go over it every single week. But if you don't tell them or let them know what you're really wanting them to do, and if you don't hold them accountable, you can tell them and go through. That's where I was getting on my point. you can tell them all the process. You think it's great, but if you don't go back and actually test them, check them, anything, they're not going to do it.
And what I've learned, and Matt, you said this, and it goes with your story, Taylor, is being close enough to have your ear to it. Because what you will find, because in our sales meeting, I'll call out, I decided to change it up from what I learned from him to incorporate that every single time that I would have someone do the meet and greet. And so I would just pick a random person. And so then I found out, and I was like, why is this guy, there was a guy 5 years ago that was so good, could handle all the objections, but his sales numbers were not that good. And so then I relate to a different person, but a manager who is never behind in any of his things, who checks all the boxes. But I'm like, why is the PVR not here? Why do we have a problem with employee turnover? If you're close enough to know that, yeah, the boxes are checked, the KPIs seem to good, but you're not close enough to have your ear to it, you'll miss the little things. If this person in the meeting every time handles the objections, or this manager or that manager, hey, make sure everything's ready to go. They learn the things that you inspect, and they check those boxes. And so when you're looking at it, not just like hey, it's 2:00 on a Thursday, or sometimes if you come in on a Wednesday, your normal day off, and you can check on them, they'll be like, whoa, what are you doing here, right? And you can kind of check them out of the normal algorithm, and then you'll really get to see what it actually is. And it's not so you can call them out and fire them. It is so that you can bring it to attention and help them grow, right? Because the more they grow, the happier they are and the hungrier they are, the ability that they have to have a better lifestyle and a better work-home balance. See, they might be like, man, why the heck you calling me out? I check all the boxes. I do all the good things. Like, because your potential is way up here, and you're just barely hitting the metrics not to get fired. You know, and so being close enough to have your ear to the ground so that you're seeing that reactiveness and then proactively planning on how to grow them.
No, that's good. That's good. Those are a lot of great just insights and in ways we've learned from, you know, from what we first talked about on just being reactive, because that got us to a certain level, then now being proactive because we have a new vision and a new level for our business, and how, you know, if we can go through change and that and adapt, so can you. Hopefully you've learned from some of this, and you can take some of these tips and these tools and put them in place. Be patient. Learn to work on yourself first, I want to say, because if you don't, nobody else will, and your department won't improve there. But a couple questions I got for you guys to maybe help the listeners out there. Taylor, let's start with you. Do you have a certain podcast or a book that you've listened to or read that you feel like has been helpful?
You know, my book that I read that I love and I always revisit it and go back to, and I love teaching as it was taught to me, but of Dave Ramsey, and take him anything anybody loves, or what I really love about him is he simplifies and makes it of Total Money Makeover, of giving your money a purpose, a vision of where it needs to go, because if not, it'll disappear. And I love talking to anyone that is growing up in this business of like, I got to make more, I got to make more, I got to make more. I want you to make more, but what I need you to realize is, and you've told me this before, but if you can't manage $1, you can't manage $100, $1,000, $10,000. The only thing that happens whenever you make more, it goes faster. It goes faster. And everyone goes through, it's not a set it and forget it, because you learn this and then it'll go up and then it comes back down. So I always love revisiting that. It's such a great structure, and it ties in with our business that if we don't have process and if we don't tell people what to do, it just doesn't happen.
That's such a great one. I'm glad you bring up that point. And the bigger downfall that people get into is they start spending more and they create this lifestyle. And then all of a sudden, and we're in a variable income business, all of a sudden the faucet shuts off, but their lifestyle stays the same, and then they get themselves in trouble. That comes straight over into business. You let your expenses get out of control, sales goes down, RO counts go down, and all of a sudden you're working your tail off and in the red.
Yep.
So that's a great one. Shelby, what about you?
So definitely generically, I love self-improvement podcasts and/or books. You got to feather it in with a little bit of everything. A cool and fun one that always changes that I love is Guy Raz, How I Built This. Just takes other businesses and breaks them down, like where they came from and what makes them successful. So I love that one because it's total randomness of all the things, right? A book that I recently have read that I love and I've referenced multiple times is How to Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. That's one of the things that you can't get more of is time. And so it has really been, we talk proactive versus reactive. It is on the proactive scale of things. And it is a very in detail book that really talks through all those things. So you got to kind of mix in a little bit of just average Eddie of good listening or good storytelling. But that's a good book of teaches how to buy back your time. And it really just it points to seeing your value and the value of people around you and scaling that so you can continue to grow.
I think one of the points, and it just happened to be this way that both of y'all talked, whether it's Ramsey or it's Guy Raz going through all the stuff or it's Dan Martell, none of those people are automotive. So if you're sitting there listening going, that sounds great, but I can't find anybody in the plumbing industry, the roofing industry, or the teaching industry, open up, broaden your horizon, because none of those people y'all are talking about listening to are directly automotive, but everything correlates.
It's a customer relation business of handling processes.
That's it.
And that's what I love. If you can take something from a different industry and put it over here, it's like you reinvented the wheel.
I know.
And you're like, no, they've been doing that at the restaurant for a long time. But you get to seem like the genius, especially within your hamster wheel of your business.
Yep.
And like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. It's like, oh, yeah.
But if you can read or listen to somebody else that's an expert in an industry that took them 30 or 40 years to develop the craft and you can put it in place, why not? Why not learn from others?
Yep.
You know, get some mentors in your life, whether they know they're mentoring you or not.
Most of them don't.
They don't. But today, just like this podcast, please subscribe. Okay, so maybe hopefully we can help you catapult your business. Then find other podcasts and other books to help grow. That's what this whole thing is about.
Yeah.
When people ask us about this podcast, it's so we can pour out to other small businesses out there to try to help them grow and learn through situations that we've been through.
Yeah.
Hey, this has been a good one, and thanks for joining in with us today. Hey, don't forget to check out all of our vehicles at lewissuperstore.com or podcasts just like this one at crossroadconversationspodcast.com. We'll see you next week. Hey, thanks for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to give it a like, share it with your friends and family, visit our website, and send us some questions. We want to know what you'd like to hear, who you'd like to hear from, and what you want to see, or maybe even some questions for us to answer about either the automotive industry or just business in general.